Hi, this is Lindsey Pinder.
And Frank Willingham.
Today we are going to be presenting our collaborative co-op experience project together. For our co-op, we focused on the Salisbury University Arboretum GIS redesign. And most others are doing this presentation independently, but Frank and I had the great fortune of working together throughout the co-op experience, and it made sense to continue doing the presentation together as well.
We were project partners in the beginning, and we are here until the very end.
Some background of the Arboretum: was established in 1998, but did not start using GIS until 2015. And in 2020, there was an unofficial partnership established between Salisbury University Arboretum and ESRGC in response to the COVID-19 pandemic. And they started taking over managing all the web-based platforms, such as the web maps and the apps.
Salisbury University's biology department had a student research project turn into a sustainability initiative. There were different funding awards given to this project, but unfortunately, COVID had stunted its growth. Implementation of the aspirations of this project were able to finally come to fruition when this year we were given the national designation of a bird campus, and we had achieved their highest status.
That brings us into our purpose. And the purpose of these projects were to conduct a needs assessment to evaluate the areas of improvement in the current GIS management practices, as well as demonstrate our suggested improvements through a proof of concept design.
We were able to restructure our Geodatabase as well to incorporate other sustainability projects, such as the Bird Campus project. It only made sense that GIS and our current trees, bird boxes, are placed in the Arboretum trees. So we joined forces here. As you can see in our two charts, they're logarithmic. As you scale up in the different phases of GIS implementation, your cost associated with those, and time management for that matter, exponentially increase. Here, we're catching it early in the redesign. We are able to then leverage any input from our users and our managers to be able to understand how we could get these collaborative efforts to work in harmony with each other. So we both had similar goals, especially the collaborative efforts between the Arboretum and the Bird Campus project. We also had to first conduct a needs assessment. The needs assessment and requirements analysis, Lindsey had already had prior experience working in the Arboretum GIS.
The major goals of this were to streamline the management of GIS. With the experience that I had working with the Arboretum, I was able to see that there was some room for improvement as far as how it was being managed.
It was amazing too. We were finding that there were way more users than we had anticipated, not just for sustainability projects, and instruction as well. Coming into our methodology, I was focused on Zeiler's 5 steps. It had fit pretty well with my project's goals and outline. So I had adopted this procedure as kind of my way of getting the job done, I guess you could say.
And for the needs assessment, I broke it down into 6 phases. The first being to identify and contact primary personnel. This is mostly introductory interviews. The next phase was the assessment of the current standing, which involved more extensive interviews and getting an inventory of all the resources used. Next was identifying the needs, which is determining the gap in performance from where we are to where we want to be. Phase 4 is the chunk of this, which is outlining the processes for meeting these needs, as well as developing the procedure and protocol necessary and establishing a schedule for completion, the overall geodatabase restructure. And then phase 5 was putting everything into a document. The final phase 6 was dispersing this information and sharing it with the primary personnel.
The needs assessment and requirements analysis had a lot of overlap with our geodatabase design principle of modeling the user's view. Here we are in a Zoom call, one of many that had taken place with our supervisor, Julie Golightly. We had to first understand what she was using the GIS for and her current workflow processes at the time to understand what needed to kind of be tweaked or changed. And we pretty quickly understood that there were a lot of redundancies and different things in her own process that could be optimized, not only for her benefit, but then also for the management of GIS, Geodatabase as well. So breaking it down in a graphical format here, conceptual design, we have our different phases of GIS development and implementation. Again, Lindsey had focused on the needs assessment and requirements analysis. Of course, we had conducted the interviews together, but again, she had a great background coming into this. Conceptually designing these, we were able to then go through and start to develop a game plan and go through each of the different work processes. First, we started on a top-down approach. We had our first run-in with the actual file management of the geodatabase. Lindsey.
Oh yeah, that was a rough one. It was a very, very convoluted. It was kind of folding in on itself. We found that the most updated data was in an import log of a copy of a copy of a copy of another folder. It was quite messy. So we took the time to redesign how that file folder structure would be organized in the local Geog student drive as part of the Salisbury University network. And we used MindMeister to develop this mind map to help lay out how we would do all of the folders.
This ended up being the final layout as well. Broke it down based on functions and needs versus users and history. Here we then define each of the entities and relationships for each geodata set. You got to remember, this is the geodatabase. What we mainly want you to take away from this is that each of the attributes were narrowed down to reduce data anomaly and data redundancy.
And in addition to that, everything has been combined into one geodatabase rather than, I think there was a starting of 4 of them. So putting them all into one place.
Optimization of user preferences in harmony with the best data management design principles. This also then balances what our GIS managers are able to use this for. What are we doing with our workflows? So this is one of our simplest workflows. This is a general size determination for how the symbology of a tree would be shown on a map. If it's a certain height, then it gets a larger circle, but obviously it gets much more complex as we're trying to define also data collection. We're trying to define how we're going to go through a needs and quality assessment. So we made this decision tree based on GIS principles of design with yes and no answers as a way to help our users in the future understand where we're coming from and how we're getting to these different steps in our workflows. We incorporated field maps, and Lindsey had a really great effort to import this into our database management and collection.
Thank you. One note I'd like to make about this as far as the workflows is that these were used to define the procedure and protocol so that there can be a stable and consistent institutional knowledge that can be transferred throughout upcoming GIS interns, whoever may fit that role next.
Also goes to say, like, every generation comes and touches this project, does something different, but then moves on. This gave our future GIS interns an opportunity to understand where we came from and where we're going in the workflows. So we had many deliverables to come through. We defined each of the day-to-day work processes you see. We also had several different models created in the import of different Excel sheets, the accession log, for example. It's important to note, though, the GIS does not come first for our Arboretum management. It's actually used as kind of a backstop to understand where trees are being planted, but they're old workflow practices and that they are still using. It's really just institutional, I should say.
Yes, the Arboretum does not use GIS as the primary means for managing and organizing their operations. It's more of an accessory item.
Going through the Arboretum web map, of course, it already exists online now. You could go and pull it up on mobile. So with field maps, what we were able to do, as you can see in this demonstration, here I was using existing tree data. Now I'm collecting the bird box location on that exact spot of the tree location. This also retains the accuracy. It's just being superimposed over top of an existing data point, thus retaining the accuracy that we had already developed.
In addition, we wanted to incorporate a quality assessment to make sure that the data is up to date and accurate as it goes online. So we decided the best way to do that would be to generate these Survey 123 quality assessments. And throughout our process of defining the workflows and just understanding the current processes already in place, we found it beneficial to separate this quality assessment from spatial to non-spatial, because there's some information that you need to be out in the field for it in order to check it. And there's some information that you need information from Julie about, or any other arborist involved with the Arboretum.
It's important also to note that we wanted our output to match similar to what our users were using the Survey 123 forms for. So we didn't want a jumbled up table. We kind of streamlined the table so that you were able to quickly extract the information that is being created and tabulated. So with the marrying of our Arboretum and our Bird Campus projects, we were able to then generate live streams for the first time. This is a screech owl making its home. He was one of our first birdcasts of the season. It was great too to be able to show that this is where the bird box is, and be able to show in relation to our different areas of campus that it really is an interconnected sustainability projects. It really helped to collaborate or show the collaboration and effort between all of our different organizations on campus. These processes helped and benefited multiple organizations, not just our Bird Campus and our Arboretum.
Absolutely. And going off of that collaboration, it was mentioned in the beginning of this presentation that ESRGC and the Arboretum have an unofficial partnership at the moment where ESRGC is managing the online web-based components of the GIS. But I think that it would be a beneficial incorporation to have a more formalized arrangement between the two. It's a valuable and beneficial relationship that aligns with the scope of the cooperative entity, ESRGC, in their effort to develop data-driven decision-making tools.
Also became a challenge in that we wanted to be able to work more hands-on with ESRGC, but understood that there were limitations to their partnership without an actual contractual or some kind of set defined relationship between these organizations. It became a challenge to really understand whose role and where certain responsibilities lied. So we all had not only challenges in the implementation of our geodatabase, we understood too, going into this, we had a Flickr account that was hosting all of the images. We were able to set up the infrastructure so that the GIS itself could contain our photos of our different trees on campus. There was also a lot of different balancing design principles, but we had to compromise on some that where if we did not keep the user preferences in mind and the user knowledge base as well. These are GIS interns and people who may not be familiar with more advanced concepts. So it really became a kind of a who you are in this field and where you're coming from to understand where we're going now. There were projects within projects. My goodness, the first one we have listed.
Yes, there is a lot that we wanted to keep doing for this project, but we simply did not have the time. That was the biggest reason, but there's a number of other limitations at play as well. But yes, some of these future developments that could continue on with this project are more emphasis on the 3D map. All of the redesign that we have structured together has been focused on the two-dimensional maps. We did not do anything with 3D maps, so there is still plenty of opportunity there to change, as well as increasing or adding additional sustainability partnerships. The Arboretum is a great place to foster sustainability. It's a great place to be able to work with other people and organizations to work for a common shared goal. There's also room to apply this redesign implementation to the physical plant's maintenance geodatabase. The Arboretum does fall under the physical plant, but their maintenance division is a separate entity. So we did not focus on the maintenance aspect for this project, but that is something that could be pursued in the future.
It's important to note that the ESRGC and Arboretum have created a mobile app. So you can scan this QR code and download to your phone. You'll be able to pull up all the different trees on campus and also learn some of the different things. So GIS, it's bringing everything and everyone together, exponentially grown just over the scope of these past 6 months. There's a lot of potential here, and I hope to see this when I come back many years from now, still growing and continuing to manage all of our different sustainability projects here and beyond in the campus and community.
Absolutely. I know that there's a lot of room for growth here, and I don't want to see it stop growing. Thank you very much for listening in on our presentation.
Thank you. Have a good one.